Delaware, I think. And to be honest, I have no idea if I approved this message or not.
I don't know what kind of political status my dog is, right? There's Donald Trump. Do you see Donald Trump?
That's what you are.
Yeah.
With your help, we're going to win Nevada. We're going to defeat.
He's cool.
Your Biden-loving
Right?
radical left senator,
Okay.
Jackie Rosen.
Now, we're gonna put, check this out. I'm not lying about this. I don't know what's wrong with my dog. I think she's, I don't know what's wrong with her. Watch, we're gonna put Joe Biden. Joe, here we go. Oh boy. Here, let's put a good video of him. Who is that? Who is that?
Welcome to the Oval.
I'm telling you. Mommy, relax. This is Joe Biden. Wait up, she really doesn't like, she just saw him and she doesn't like him. Here we go. Joe Biden. Relax. I think my dog is relax, mommy. Relax, mommy. Mommy.
Well, that's disappointing considering my dogs are always so well behaved. And live from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. But we don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. And tonight, what to make of the dumpster fire that is 2024 J. Hogan Gidley. Why are they coming for your kids, Ginny Gentles? Sketch comedy tonight from Hillary 2016 and the Babylon Bee. Feeding children who starve Paul Jacobs, and energy that's good for us from Ed Kovalik. Plus new music from a new music newbie, Tim McGraw in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, a man who is man enough to accept kisses from Travis Kelce, golf shot or not, here's the Kevin.
Yeah, I don't really get the Travis Kelce story. He kissed a man on the arm because evidently he was playing golf and the golf ball hit the guy on the arm, so he kissed his arm to show how nice he was. Dude, if you hit me on the golf course with your ball, it's fine. Just pretend it didn't happen. That's the best way you can acknowledge it for me. That's all I'm saying. Kevin McCullough, welcoming you to a weekend. What a week it was. And what a week it's going to be. You've got the conventions straight ahead. You've got the Republicans that have just delighted themselves in sitting off to the side this last week and watching the Democrats literally tear themselves to pieces. I've never seen the Democratic Party this frayed and this just at odds with each other. And it's really funny because what they're famous for, and this is one of the reasons why sometimes Republicans get irritated with other Republicans, and sometimes I think, it's a badge of honor. I'm not sure which I would think if I was in this situation, but Democrats are much more well known for circling the wagons and making sure that everybody that is trying to come at them doesn't get past the perimeter, right? So you circle the wagons, you keep the attackers from coming in, and that's what you do. In this situation, they have been conducting their own animal-style food fight in the cafeteria all to themselves, throwing their trays and silverware and pizza and everything else at each other, and it's just been a glorious thing to watch. And I have to tell you this, I've got to brag about this for a second, because there are those of you that are still like, well, I don't know. Trump seems kind of like a mean man, and I didn't like him too much in 2016 because he said some mean things that, like, he protected the country and kept us all safe and kept our kids safe and got judges on the Supreme Court. He did all the good stuff. And we've still got people that, I don't know, he's kind of a meanie sometimes. Well, you know what? He hasn't been a meanie this time. Have you noticed? In the debate, he kept his cool. He didn't go after Biden. He could have totally like torched him on multiple occasions. And just the way he laughed off the whole golf thing when Joe Biden's like, I drive a Dodge Stratus. I can play golf. I have a 6 handicap. And, you know, Trump doesn't say anything. He just kind of grins and just goes about his business. And in this last week, when President Dodge Stratus, Mr. Biden, has been demanding, I could be the president. I held a big boy press conference, and I'm telling you, I'm good at this. And if you don't believe me, you just watch. I'll do it again. And then he calls his vice president VP Trump, and then he talks about how he needs to check with his commander-in-chief before he makes a decision. What is that? You are the commander-in-chief, you blind, bat crazy moron. You're the commander-in-chief. You have our nuclear football. You have all of our national secrets. You're the man that's in charge, and you're talking about consulting with your commander-in-chief. It was a mind-blowing, historic, weird week in ways that I still won't think that the historians will figure out for years to come. But here's what I'm getting asked by everybody that is on this case. They're saying, Kev, what's going to happen? What do you do? Well, the options are fairly limited. You can't just put anybody else in there because the ballot access issue is a real one. If they decide to go with someone who's not on the ticket, they're going to have to go through 50 rounds of litigation in individual courts up and down the country to try to just make sure that they are the ones, they get the ones on there that they want to have. And at the end of the day, it is very important that they understand that the only option they have that doesn't go through the courts is to put Kamala Harris on. Cackling Kamala. She's going to laugh. She's going to drive you crazy. From the moment they started mentioning her name, and I look, I'm not trying to be in poor taste about this, but this is the truth. From the moment that they mentioned her name, her negatives started to multiply and her positives started to decrease. It is not at all an unrealistic possibility that if he resigns, she's the actual nominee. And the minute that they started making that equation, it was like her negatives went up and her positives went down. So they are in a real pickle. I mean, a genuine dilemma of their own making in ways that we can't even begin to understand. So where do we go from here? Well, tonight, J. Hogan Gidley is going to weigh in on some of this for us a little bit later on. Ginny Gentles is back from the Independent Women's Forum, and she's going to give us some perspective on what it means to the educational debate in the country. We've got some great sketch comedy for you tonight. Do you remember Hillary Clinton's 3 a.m. in the morning ad? It's back, and there's some good stuff with that. And then the Babylon Bee is taking on the DEI as it comes to the world of video games. We have got so much good stuff for you. And friends, we are only in week 2, but I am strongly asking you tonight to help us feed 593 starving children in Haiti that are working with food. We're working with Food for the Poor to get them the food that they need to survive this summer. A gift of $80 for one child will feed them for 700 meals every day, 2 meals a day for the next year. Every day they'll get 2 meals of rice, beans, carbohydrate, protein, occasionally some vegetables, occasionally some chicken, some goat, some other things. But they will be guaranteed 2 meals every day for the coming year for the entirety of the whole next year. We just need your help. 855-349-4673. I love Food for the Poor. They're doing such good work, such important work. And in addition to that, tonight, for the duration of my show, if you give a gift to Food for the Poor, they're going to double the number of children that are able to be fed. So if you give a gift of $80 tonight, you're going to feed 2 children for the next year, 700 meals per child. If you give a gift of $160 tonight, you're going to feed 4 children, 700 plus. Imagine buying 2,800 meals for a child over the next year. Could you do that for $160? I don't think so. I can't feed my 14-year-old for $160 in a given month. So can you go make the call, 855-349-4673. It's our Summer of Hope, 855-349-4673. Or give online at instagood.org. That's like instantly doing good, instagood.org. Instagood.org. Or you can text my name, Kevin, to 93999 and give that way as well. Kevin McCullough coming right back from New York. Stay with us.
From New York, it's That Kevin Show.
See, I knew it.
Come on, Kev. What's a few classified documents between friends?
I told you all the time. I knew it. I knew he had some too.
Here he is. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. Hoping to make your weekend even more fun than than that proverbial barrel of monkeys that we always talk about. Speaking of barrels of monkeys, here's Hogan Gidley. Hello, Hogan. Hey,
that's a great intro.
I always try to find a unique way to bring you into the discussion. But it's, in terms of someone who is working on the behalf of the former president who's running again, you've had a good week or so here between the January 6th ruling, the immunity ruling, the Chevron ruling, the debate. Just talk to me a little bit about how you've perceived Mr. Trump has done over the last few weeks.
Well, I think Donald Trump has done outstanding, in large part because these cases were all bogus against him, and you're starting to see them unravel before our very eyes. But also, bigger than Donald Trump, it's good for the American people because we deserve courts in this country that don't make law, but instead interpret laws. That's what they're supposed to do. And you've seen some significant victories at the Supreme Court level, of course. The week started off, even though it was the end of last week, with an incredible debate performance by the former president and a horrible debate performance by Joe Biden. And now we're going into some court cases here where the American people look like they're the big winners. Very exciting, good place to be.
Well, and just going back to the debate for half a second, I was anchoring for Salem News Channel late into the early part of Friday morning, and it was a night that was it felt very disjointed in many ways because the bad performance of the current president. But I had been asked by 2 or 3 media outlets going into that night, what did you think that the former president was going to do? And I said, I think you're going to see someone who's very chill, comfortable in his own skin, confident of his record, confident of what he thinks he can do again. And man, if he didn't just pull that off to the most expert, there was no bombastic Trump, there was no insulting Trump. At times, I thought he even looked kind of compassionate on his opponent, which is not something that Republicans normally get pegged with. Normally we're the mean guys, or we're told that we're mean. But I think he at times felt sorry for Mr. Biden.
Well, it's one of the other big stories out there. It's not just that Biden performed poorly, but that Donald Trump performed so well. And I think you're hitting on something interesting and I think factual, and that is Donald Trump did show a lot of empathy and sympathy for the sitting president, as did most Americans, because what they saw up there was someone who is rapidly declining physically and mentally. I'm glad the media pretends as though they found Jesus on this, but listen, this is not new. Everyone could see how bad Joe Biden was. And just a week before the debate, need I remind you, they basically invented a term to try and protect Joe Biden. It was cheap fakes is what they were called, because you're just taking him out of context. They're not real. He really is with it. This was his debate stage, his chosen network, his anchors, his rules, his leaked stories about the Hollywood setup, the 16 experts that were helping him. They had lines prepared to drop on the American people, ways to get Donald Trump angry, get under his skin, tips like avoid your own record, because Lord knows you don't want to talk about that while you're president because your record's so bad. It was set up for him to succeed, and he failed. But more than just his physical and mental decline, he's an imbecile. His policies have destroyed the American people, kicked us in the teeth. And Donald Trump did a great job pointing that part of it out. Everyone can see the guy's old and addled. You don't need to focus on it, except for the fact that that age and those physical limitations invite conflict from our enemies around the world, not just to America,
that was
but
the
to our
part
friends
that
and
bothered
allies. That's significant.
That was the part that really bothered me, is that right now, all of our enemies see exactly what we saw, and they know that our commander-in-chief on some level is super impaired. And if there is a season to behave badly, they've just wandered into it.
Yep.
And we're going to have to be extra vigilant. I mean, I woke up Monday morning reading reports from Fox News and others that were saying that there's, terrorist activity that could be unleashed on American bases throughout the world.
Yes.
That story wasn't going to happen, if you had a sound commander. And I'm not even talking about Trumping. I mean, if Obama, any of the guys that had preceded him were there, they would not have been circulating those kinds of stories nearly as wildly. I think the whole world, especially the bad guys, kind of senses a moment, and I'm very, very concerned about the course of our nation for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 months.
But yes and no. They've been circulating these stories about ISIS sneaking into this country, or an ISIS network who brings people into this country for a while, when the press knew that Joe Biden, or they thought he was, they lied about his cognitive abilities. So now they may smell blood in the water, and they may be releasing it more and more. But if I'm Donald Trump, I'm going to say, look, it's very clear that Joe Biden is weak. But this country is strong. And here's a message to all you folks out there around the world who think you can test us. You're going to be in this weird spot for about 5 to 6 months. Don't do it. When I get elected, I'm coming.
He kind of tipped his hand that way. And again, I thought very respectfully to the sitting president, but he kept referring to, once I'm president-elect, we'll end the war in Ukraine. Once I'm president-elect, we'll end the war in Israel. Once I'm president-elect. And it was as though he was signaling to those bad actors, you don't really want to do this, so just don't. And I thought that was good. Real quickly, the speculation that followed, obviously, the first part of the week especially, was that, he was going to step down, and the Biden campaign got together on Sunday, and they kind of circled the wagons, which Democrats kind of do better than Republicans, actually. They normally protect each other. Republicans just tear each other apart. But I did feel like there was still some fight left in the Biden camp. We're talking before the weekend, obviously, but how far does that last, Hogan Gidley?
Well, there are but two choices here. You're either supporting him for president, or you're asking him to step down. I think a majority of Democrats are stuck, whether they want to be or not, in that we're going to support him for president. He's the one who beat Trump before. He can do it again.
Well, and most of the primary season has happened, so voters have weighed in at this point.
Yep. And so I think them removing Joe Biden, as you have outlined, it sets a cascading effect on so many problems, not just from the internal politics of the Democrat Party, but the financial problems with the FEC and other things, where that money goes. A lot of problems. I think they're with Joe Biden, unless he has some physical ailment they just have to, or he steps down himself.
But Hogan, watching the debate, you could say he could claim that now and probably step aside and say, I'm too frail to do it. So I'm not sure that, they're going to have a bona fide, medical doctor that's going to say he's that much worse than he is currently.
Yeah, but if he's not able to be president, if he's not able to run for president, then he's not able to be president.
True.
Okay. So then there's the 25th Amendment issue that I know people talk about. Don't think that happens either. You're not going to get Buttigieg and all these other people, Mayorkas and others, come out and say we're going to get rid of him. But I'm just trying to point out the fact here, it's really clunky and cumbersome, chaotic even, to try and do those things heading up into a convention.
Well, and I think you have to have someone in mind to replace before you pull that card, and I don't know that they found anybody.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
And we're back. Hogan Gidley is my guest, and you can follow him on social media. Hogan, you've been in the war room on a lot of campaigns. You've worked for successful presidential campaigns. You've worked for unsuccessful presidential campaigns. You've spent time in the White House press office. You've seen this game from the communication standpoint in just about every facet that it can be seen from. Having said that, it's my opinion that the Trump side is going to say, look, it wasn't just Joe Biden that gave us these policies. It was everybody that supported him as well. In fact, I'm arguing in a town hall piece 2 weeks ago that you need to tag every Senate candidate and every House candidate with the Joe Biden policies, because unless they really spoke up and fought against them, then they were helping them.
Yes.
And to me, that's just the extension of where the campaign argument goes, even if you slide a Michelle Obama or Kamala Harris in there. And if you don't put Kamala Harris or Michelle Obama at the top of the ticket and you're on the Democratic Party, you're going to lose the 70% of black voters that are still with them, because 30% has been peeled off by Trump. You're going to lose 70% of black voters saying, no, why did you overlook our girls? And there are two groups of people that vote in every election. They will crawl over volcanic ash to vote. It's old people and it's black women. You can't afford that if you're a Democrat right now.
No, but it's a box of their own making. If they decide to go past Kamala Harris and pull in a Gavin Newsom, for example, then they, by their own definition, are guilty of being racist, sexist, and bigoted. So I, for one, would love to see it, because I want them to implode on their own BS nonsense. However, it does create kind of a difficult situation for them to really figure out what's moving forward. And you hear all of these pieces about, well, let's just put Kamala on the Supreme Court, get somebody else to step down, and then we're going to bring in Michelle Obama as the vice president, and she can be president if Joe Biden. I mean, look, the simplest thing here is probably the thing. And that is Joe Biden is the nominee. It's going to be a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And remember, as bad as that debate was, we have a million lifetimes in political terms from now until November. And Democrats will not relinquish power easily. They will go all out to prevent from losing this election. Remains to be seen how they're going to do it. But there are a lot of ways they can still rig things in their favor moving into the vote. I'd be worried about that if I were Republican. So this is the time to put the nail in that coffin and keep going forward hard, stronger than you ever have before.
Well, that's what Trump's arguing, is that you have to campaign like you're 10 runs down in the bottom of the ninth. Let's quickly just touch on the immunity case. The day that it was handed down, you had the chance to do quite a bit of media. It seems like it's an important case from the standpoint, not just how it impacts the Trump election. I mean, that's in all reality, that's kind of here and there, but it does kind of establish what we're talking about when it comes to presidential immunity going forward. What's the big takeaway?
Yeah, big win for Donald Trump, but a big win for the American people here. And a couple pieces of the ruling, which I found interesting, I wrote down here. The quote that stood out to me, and there were several. One was, the presumption of immunity applies to all occupants of the Oval Office. That makes a whole lot of sense. It's common sense, quite frankly, because if, in fact, there was no immunity as president and I were a Republican attorney, I'd be a billionaire by the end of the year, because I'd go after Obama for Fast and Furious, for droning the American people. I'd go after Biden for leaving the border wide open when the law clearly says he has to send people back. I'd go after Bill Clinton for Monica Lewinsky, criminally, of course, not through Congress, because he never was tried for it criminally. And I was on TV talking about this, and the host made the point, wait a minute, don't you think it's a little bit different here? They're not the same cases, because after all, Trump called an elected official and asked him to find the votes. And I said, yeah, it's way different. You're right. Because when in the face of countless examples of illegalities, irregularities, and anomalies, a president in his official duty asking questions about the outcome is way different than the tens of thousands of people who have been raped, killed, suffered burglaries, assaults from the illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into this country. I would argue one's way worse than a phone call to an elected official, and that's what Biden has done. So if we're going to play this game in perpetuity, let's play it. But Republicans need to understand this ruling tamps that down. Democrats need to understand. Now it all kind of settles again and goes, there is a certain level of immunity. And the last point I'll make is it said what's not admitted in court are private conversations between the president or his advisors. And see, all of this stuff was rushed through the court system so fast in an effort to take out Donald Trump. No one litigated this. And so the Supreme Court did the right thing here in protecting the American people. Because I would argue Bill Clinton bombed that aspirin factory to change the political narrative. We could go back many years and do this for every president, but that's
we don't want to be that country. We don't want to be litigated.
No, we don't.
Every administration in the rearview window. No, it's not good. All right, Hogan. Always appreciate it. Be well.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, always glad to have you with us and always thankful for those of you that help us change the world around us. It's one of the reasons why I set aside part of my platform just specifically for this. I'm grateful that God lets me speak to the people that I get to speak to on a weekly basis in terms of social media and broadcast and stream and all the rest of it. But I want to use this platform to honor him and the people that he loves as well. And Paul Jacobs is back with us from Food for the Poor. And Paul, the scripture is pretty clear, and there's probably many people watching and listening tonight that are not what they would consider biblical believers. But you just need to know, friend, if that is one of you, that the scripture is very clear that God takes very seriously how we deal with children who are poor and who are hungry. And that is one of the reasons why we've committed to, in these hot summer months, say, hey, what can we do to help alleviate the pain with some of these children that are starving to death in Haiti? And Paul Jacobs, it's a timely situation because it's really, really bad where these kids are right now.
That's exactly right. You're talking about rising food costs in our community. That is causing us to make adjustments in our daily life. But when you're talking about a community where mothers and fathers, families are earning $1 or $2 a day, or at worst, they're going to local garbage dumps where other people have thrown away trash and foraging through those piles of trash just to find their children's next meal. These are the conditions that are happening on a daily basis. Now, with anyone could watch the news and see that there has been tremendous civil unrest, but it is still causing Food for the Poor to dig deeper with our ministry partners. We are still ministering to those families. We're still going to those communities. And we need your help because, quite frankly, while a lot of lines and a lot of opportunities and travelways and roads have been shut down, Food for the Poor still makes sure that we reach those communities in any which way we can, because regardless of what may be happening in the country, the government, or the economy, those families still need our help.
855-349-4673, 855-349-4673. Take a listen to this right here.
We walked into this wretched little shack. Inside we saw a mother totally with her face showed every line of suffering possible of a mother who feels frustrated because she can't feed her children. She had 2 children in the shack with her. There was a 4-year-old who was actually eating a handful of rice, and the 7-year-old who was standing there looking very woefully at his little brother who was eating. And we said to the 7-year-old, "How come you're not eating also?" And he said to us, "Today, it's not my turn to eat." Can you imagine the pain on a mother to have to tell one of her children, "Today it's not your turn to eat, perhaps tomorrow"? to have that complete food insecurity where you cannot plan even one day in advance for a meal for your children. That has to break a mother's heart.
I can't see any other way around it. Angel Aloma, the former executive director at Food for the Poor, and Paul Jacobs, too many times on Food for the Poor trips, you and others have looked right into the eyes of moms who have had to make that decision.
Ida, a mother that we met, Kevin, in Kadwa, Haiti, sitting there with her two small children, Kenya, 3 years old, and her little brother, just about 1, sharing from a metal bowl, not a big overheaping bowl of rice, but a few grains that was left over, anything that she could to give those small children something to put in their bellies. But it was not enough. And to look her in the eyes, to see that desperation, only to find out 1 year later, the pastor in that community made sure that when resources got into Kadwa, Haiti, that she was one of the very first to make sure that she partook of the food and the nourishment and her children were able to be fed. This is the transformation. This is the change. This is the alleviation of poverty that is taking place right now when your compassion meets a phone call or a click of a mouse or says yes to children and families who have heard no for far too long in places like Haiti.
Yeah. You can give online at a website called instagood.org, instagood.org. That's insta like instant and good, instagood.org. And you can give your gift. Friends, we have a unique opportunity for the next few minutes, and that is that it costs $80 to feed a child for a year through Food for the Poor. But if you give in the next 10 minutes, your gift is going to be doubled and twice as many children are going to be helped. So if you normally give a gift of $240 and say you want to give food for 3 children for the entire year, that's, by the way, 700 plus meals each. That's more than 2,100 meals that you're providing for that $240 amount, feeding 3 kids 2 meals a day for the next year. But right now, because of the match, that's going to turn into 6 children. So please call right now, 855-349-4673. But when that happens, the change that comes over, and Paul, speaking of our travels, I remember when we went to, I forget the name of the school, but it was one of the schools in one of the towns there in Haiti, and they had received one of the Food for the Poor clean watering systems. And if you asked any of the children at the schoolyard, you know, what does the water taste like? They get this big smile across their face and they say, "Mister, that's delicious water." And I don't know what water tasted like before, but that smile, that thankfulness, that gratitude for having water that was clean and able to be consumed was just overwhelming. And at the time, those children were being fed every day by Food for the Poor as well. And so, friends, right now, $80 will feed a child nutritious, needed food to help them survive this hot, sweltering summer in Haiti where there is not enough food. And that's a shame because there's more than enough food produced on planet Earth. We have so much food production on planet Earth that there's enough for more than 4.5 pounds worth of food to be consumed by every human being, infant to senior citizen. But the fact that there are children in Haiti and in some of the Caribbean and Latin American countries that do not have even enough to survive, that's unacceptable. And that's why it is so vital that right now you join us and make this gift. 855-349-4673. And for the next 10 minutes, every gift given is going to be matched. 855-349-4673, 855-349-4673.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. But there's a phone in the White House and it's ringing. Something's happening in the world. Your vote will decide who answers that call. Whether it's someone who already knows the world's leaders, knows the military, someone tested and ready to lead in a dangerous world. It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. Who do you want answering the phone?
I'm Joe Biden, the senator from Delaware. and I do not approve this message. Well, anyway, live from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald Show. But we don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. What to make of the dumpster fire that is the 2024 election? J. Hogan Gidley. Why are they coming for your kids? Ginny Gentles. Sketch comedy from Hillary 2016 and the Babylon Bee. Feeding children who starve, Paul Jacobs. Energy That's Good with Ed Kovalik. And new music newbie, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the fancy pants himself, who invented the original Big Boy press conference, here's Well, you know what, David? Yeah, I didn't invent the Big Boy press conference, but I am very curious as to exactly what anybody thought that doing the Big Boy press conference was going to bring about. It seems to me like everybody's saying, oh, it's the worst outcome possible that they could well, what did you think was going to happen? The dude needs to be in bed by 6:30 on a good night, and that's without meeting with NATO all day. Anyway, it's Kevin McCullough. So glad to have you with us, and we're on top of this. Lots of Biden stuff in the news, obviously, night in and night out. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, at least not until he makes that decision. All right, get to the news. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. The fallout from the poor Biden performances at the presidential debate and his post-NATO press conference this week continues. Now, masters of industry are following in the footsteps of actor George Clooney, pictured here barking at his Italian dry cleaner, in encouraging Biden to drop out of the presidential race. Thus far, Virgin Incorporated billionaire Richard Branson is telling him to step back from another run at the White House. Wait, did he really do that? Step back? Weren't the stairs and steps kind of part of the problem to begin with? No? In addition, former NBA great Charles Barkley has called on him to, quote, pass the torch, which alone is remarkable since usually the player who took pride in being known as the round mound of rebound is best known for usually yelling at other people to pass the pizza. The president is, however, reassuring everyone that not only can he win, but he has his own warning system in the event that he needs to drop out, how he would officially know, telling the Democratic Party, the political party that I might add stripped God from schools, their own platforms language, and their churches, that it would be someone called the Lord who would make him leave if it was necessary. To which the entirety of the Democratic base asked, new phone, who dat? The Lord. In other news about really bad people, Alec Baldwin, seen here with a spiffy new haircut, has asked the judge in his case to dismiss his trial. Now, the rationale for it is that he's asking the judge to only rule on the merits of the case. He also asked the judge to overlook the part where he pointed the gun directly in the face of his director and pulled the trigger. Speaking of actors, Nicolas Cage is speaking out. He's speaking out as to why he's terrified about the future of filmmaking. His concerns stemming largely from the use of AI voices and images
that the actors don't see benefit from. Oddly enough, Assignment Desk Weekend has confirmed that many moviegoers have admitted to being terrified at many of Cage's previous films, but that was mostly just due to his acting. And finally, tennis star Serena Williams tried her hand at a bit of comedy this week at the recent ESPYs Awards, making a joke at the expense of the WNBA superstar Caitlin Clark. She claimed that Clark is the female equivalent of Larry Bird, in that they were both beloved residents of Indiana, both seen as exceptionally good at their game, and both were people that white fans could love. The crowd replied with scant laughter until Clark was heard under her breath saying, "Girl, you played tennis." For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
I can't believe we got jobs doing this.
I know. And my mom said I would never get anywhere with these games. Is that the latest build? Yeah. We're really proud of it.
The art is finalized. Jumpy the hamster can even pick up treasures now as he embarks on an epic quest to save the royal family of Hammerlawn from an evil dark wizard.
And as you can see, Jumpy runs, jumps, collects stuff, and beats bad guys. Simple family fun.
Guys, it's perfect. Oh, there you are. Gentlemen, meet our new DEI consultant. She's here to fix your game.
But I thought you said it was perfect.
No, it's just an expression.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Perkins, she, her, and I am here to make sure your game is as diverse and culturally sensitive as possible.
I guess that doesn't sound too bad.
Ultra Jump Hamster Legend is incredible. I love the way your guy, he just jumps and everything. But there is just one tiny little thing. Can we make him not jump?
I was wrong.
He has to jump. The game is called Ultra Jump Hamster Legend because of the jumping.
Well, jumping is ableist. Okay, so what if someone out there can't jump? They're playing the game, and they're thinking, this hamster can jump, and I can't, okay?
Well, that doesn't make any sense. I like playing Pac-Man even though I don't take a bunch of pills all the time. Okay, bad example, but my point stands.
Okay, next, instead of a hamster, let's make him a strong woman of ambiguous ethnic background. That's like an instant positive review in Kotaku.
Yes. Wait, Kotaku is still in business?
But again, it's called Ultra Jump Hamster Legend.
Guys, look, just remember, this is going to help our game reach a wider audience.
No, it won't. But it will make us feel like we're good people.
It will make us feel like good people. But you're not.
Okay, next, I noticed that Jumpy collects treasure.
That's my favorite part.
This seems to promote the colonialist appropriation of artifacts from indigenous cultures.
Well, I mean, the treasures are just golden slices of cheese.
What if your players are lactose intolerant?
Well, you don't eat the cheese in real life. He just walks over it, and it says cheesecake.
Bottom line, the treasures are gone.
I never should have left Sonic Team.
Let's move on to the game's plot. I thought it was cute how you get your little Jumpy to run through the levels to the Wizard's Tower, but I couldn't help but notice that this game doesn't have any commentary on the plight of the trans immigrant community.
Again, it's called Ultra Jump Hamster Legend because he's a hamster.
Okay, was a hamster. Now he is a strong woman fighting for representation in the trans immigrant community. Okay, now hold on, wait. I'm just spitballing here. But should we change it to a commentary on climate change?
Well, we could make the climate change like a season pass where you could pay for $59.99 or something.
Also, there's no gay stuff in the game.
Well, it's for kids, so...
Yeah, hence the gay stuff.
All of these changes totally break gameplay.
Gameplay?
You see what I have to work with here?
You believe this guy?
I know this guy.
This guy.
You are a guy, right? I mean, I shouldn't have asked. I'll report myself to HR.
The Babylon Bee bringing a little spark of funny to your weekend. Kevin McCullough, we still got a great hour straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
And welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. It's That Kevin Show. And again, another great selection from Tim McGraw and Faith Hill in tonight's Spotlight as we work our way to the final portion of the show tonight. I hope you'll stay with us. I'm very excited to welcome back Ginny Gentles from the Independent Women's Forum. I just love the Independent Women's Forum because of all the good that they are doing. They've had the Title IX bus tour out there, making great waves in places that needed to hear that message. But Ginny's focus is on, most of the time, it's on educational issues and how that's impacting you and your kids and what's happening educationally in the country. Ginny, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Let's talk a little bit. We're in convention season now. Next week, the Republicans are going to line it up in Milwaukee. A little bit after that, you got the Democrats going to tee it up in Chicago, regardless of who the nominee is coming out of it. I've told people from the beginning, the race doesn't change. You can take Biden out and stick Kamala in there or Michelle Obama or whoever you want to, but this is an Obama apparatus administration. Their approach to education is what they're going to be pursuing into a new administration if they were to win the election in November. So what we really need to understand is what's important to them. And I think they're largely informed by the NEA and the other teachers unions. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right, Kevin. And the NEA loves Joe Biden, but they'll take Kamala Harris too. They're really careful in how they word things in their endorsement. They talk about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are leading the most pro-union administration in modern history. So they throw both names in there, and they throw their full endorsement and their political war chest and machine as well.
And as I just said, it doesn't matter if Kamala is overlooked, because if you put Michelle Obama in there, this has been an Obama apparatus. This is the only administration in the modern era since I've been watching politics that does not have control of its own top thinkers and chiefs. And that's what kind of sets this administration apart. That and a lot of bad policy, but that's a different total discussion. Let's get into the conventions are going to come up. Do you anticipate that education will be addressed by both Republicans and Democrats, and how do you think it will differ?
Well, I was hoping we would talk a little bit about the conventions that the unions are having.
We're going to get to that too.
They're doing their best.
Lay the groundwork, because what the teachers will decide to do at their conventions, I think, is going to be in some level reactionary to what the politicians are going to be calling for.
Well, the National Education Association just had their annual meeting, and they invited President Biden to come speak. So absolutely, the unions want to get the attention of politicians. They want to get the attention of their members and ensure that union-endorsed candidates are going to win.
Advocated for, yeah.
Yeah.
So what did they uncover at their recent meeting?
Well, it was the most interesting NEA or union summer gathering that we've had that I can remember, because what ended up happening was after the first day, the NEA's staff went on strike and it shut the next 3 days down. So yes, the union has a union, and the union's union went on strike and accused the NEA, again, that's the National Education Association, the biggest teachers union in the country, of all kinds of nefarious things. And President Biden's campaign staff said that he wasn't going to cross the picket line, and so he canceled that speech. So to your initial question, do we think education is going to come up at the political conventions? I'm sure that the union hopes so, because their political rally, their annual summer meeting, was shut down due to a strike.
But if they wanted to solve that problem and hold their convention and push forward an agenda, And if they have an agenda for what they would like to accomplish in a second Biden term, what does that look like?
Oh, more of the same. Like you said, that this is a continuation of the Obama administration, and you can get that reality very clear when you look at who staffed the Obama administration and who's staffing the U.S. Department of Education under the Biden administration. It's a lot of the same names, and that happens with both parties. But for example, Catherine Lehman is the head of the Office of Civil Rights, just like she was in the Obama administration, and she's leading the way on all this Title IX stuff that we're always calling attention to. So it would be a continuation of the same very pro-left, very progressive, very radical agenda that we see now.
Well, for people that are maybe uninitiated, maybe they don't have kids in school, but they're concerned about the kids of the country, what have been some of the biggest changes since the Bidens have come to power?
The biggest change absolutely has been the illegal rewrite of Title IX. People think that that is just about women's sports. It's not. It covers all of the education experience, any school that receives federal funding, and that includes K-12. And the Biden administration has been rewriting protection of sex discrimination to also include gender identity. And that means any boy, any man, any male can self-identify as a woman and be in women's spaces, scholarships, opportunities. And so we're really concerned about that specifically, but we definitely see an anti-education freedom, anti-school choice agenda. They've done everything they can to diminish the impact of the federal charter school program, to restrict that as much as possible. And we're going to see more waste when it comes to federal funds than we've ever seen before. There was $190 billion sloshing around in supplemental federal funding that went out the door, and the Biden administration has no idea really how that was spent.
And not only do they not have any idea, they don't care to be accountable for what they need to know about that.
Yeah.
They're not even curious enough to go investigate it. A lot of the problem with the teachers' unions have to do with their leadership. And recently, the president of the NAA had some very interesting things to say about the state of where, this issue. What were some of the takeaways from her, what many are calling an unhinged speech?
It's hard. I looked up the synonym for unhinged because we are saying that so much, and it describes it so perfectly. If anyone's seen a clip, this is the speech where NEA President Becky Pringle is shouting, "Win all the things," over and over and over. And then she's talking about do this work. So when she's talking about win all the things, obviously she means electing union endorsed candidates and officials. She's also talking about strikes. She celebrated in this 28 or so minute speech the strikes that closed down schools. So win all the things, and if you're not winning, close schools with strikes. She celebrated the legislative victories to keep sexually explicit books in schools. She talked about she had some things to say about the Supreme Court. Of course, they talk about abortion. She quickly gets off topic and stops talking about education and starts talking about a progressive agenda and the importance of electing candidates who will forward that agenda. There's lots of talk of genocide and Gaza, any of the progressive grab bag issues. That's what Becky Pringle and the NEA is excited about.
She's Ginny Gentles. I'm Kevin McCullough. Coming right back from New York, McCoy.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
And we're back. Kevin McCullough, Times Square. Glad to have you with us. And thank you to those of you that have been helping us feed those children in Haiti. We have a list of some 590 yet to go that you can help us feed for a mere gift of $80. Feed one child 700 meals over the next year in our hemisphere's poorest population. Please go to the website called instagood.org, like do some instant good, instagood.org, or you can call 855-349-4673. Continuing with Independent Women's Forum's Ginny Gentles, who writes a lot concerning the state of education and what the public schools are dealing with. And we were just reviewing the recent speech by the NAA president, which, Ginny, when you started telling me the things that were involved in her speech, as a father of a daughter who goes to a very beloved public school in where we live, I can only imagine the heated anger that I would have if I heard that any of the topics you just mentioned, abortion, sexually explicit materials, any of this stuff, were even broached by my public school teachers with my daughter, because as far as I'm concerned, all of that has almost nothing to do with 2 + 2 or how you sound out words or the proper use of handwriting or any of the other things that my daughter is in school to learn about while she's there. And sometimes the left does us a favor. Sometimes they drop the curtain and we really do see what's going on back there. We did it during COVID, especially in the public school systems. But do they notice that parents are not in agreement with this, and that when you add on to that agenda the forcing of boys into what used to be safe spaces for girls, locker rooms, showers, bathrooms, fields of play, etc., you are now not only not doing the job that you're supposed to do, you're now endangering the public welfare of my daughter and others that are in there. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of parents. By the way, I know a lot of public school teachers that do a really good job and that are very concerned about this. So please, if you're watching tonight, don't read this as some sort of dogging on the public school teachers themselves. It's the unions and it's this ideology that they are forcing down from the top that we are violently pushing back against. And Jeannie, I'm just wondering, where's the tipping point? Because parents are not going to put up with this, and I think that they're going to speak out, come November 5th.
Well, I want parents to read or watch Becky Pringle's speech. This is the NEA president giving the speech that is very similar to the one that she gave last year. We pay a lot of attention to the fact that she's shouting at the speech and looks absolutely ridiculous, and then we move on. Well, let's not move on. Let's look at what her priorities are and what she left out. And what big thing that she left out was discipline in the classrooms, which that's endangering her own members. That's endangering teachers when we have out of control classrooms. So the concerns of parents, the concerns of teachers, those are not represented by unions. And we need to make sure that we don't just pay attention to Becky's ridiculous speaking style, but we pay attention to what she cares about, what she doesn't care about. And what she cares about is power, electing union endorsed politicians who will do her bidding. What she doesn't care about is the safety of teachers and students or the education of students. There was no mention of chronic absenteeism, of prolonged and profound learning loss, concerns that parents have right now. So we really need to ensure that paychecks of teachers are not automatically deducting dues to go straight to the NEA or the AFT, and that we start minimizing the power of the union.
And how does Independent Women's Forum best suggest parents go about finding those things out and getting involved if nothing's being done currently? Where do you guys suggest people turn?
Well, we have a teachers union resource center, a resource page on our website. I write weekly teachers union report cards that reveal the teachers union shenanigans all around the country. It's not just the national unions. It's your local union in Ohio, in New Mexico, in West Virginia. These are examples of areas where I've written report cards. So check out our resources and then join one of our Independent Women's Network chapters that can get involved in their community to figure out, how do we support teachers? How do we help them leave the union? How do we restore discipline in our classrooms and in our community? And how do we decrease the power of the union, which would need to happen again with dues, pull those dues, to redirect the teachers to alternative organizations that can support them, and then make sure that the school board is prioritizing the needs of parents rather than the unionized employees.
So go to iwf.org, look up the resources, and start a chapter and get involved.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
And welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us and hoping that your weekend is just peachy. You know that the last few weeks I've been super hyper excited about this little group called oilfacts.com I've been telling you about. And all, disclosure, I've known about them from the beginning. I believe in what they're doing. I'm a big fan of what they are. But this week they released another round of facts. And I just want to put this in front of you. Did you know that extreme poverty in 1980 was 42% of the planet, and today it's less than 10%. There are those that will try to tell you, the crazy AOCs of the world, hey, papi, I tell you about electric cars. No. Electric cars haven't saved anybody's life. You know what has? Fossil fuels. Here to discuss is Ed Kovalik of oilfacts.com and the CEO of Prairie Operating Group, the group behind oilfacts.com, which is just rising in lore across the energy spectrum on planet Earth. It's good to see you again. Thanks for coming back.
It's great to be here today, Kevin.
I love hearing these little stories about how word's getting out about oil facts and people are starting to use it and they're telling their friends to go and they're finding out things they've never known before. I mean, this is the purpose of why it's there, correct?
Hey, truth is infectious, and, we're here to, I guess, tell the truth about energy because there's been so much mistruth told.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the little fact that I enrolled there. In 1980, 42% of the planet felt a version of extreme poverty. Today, it's less than 10%. AOC tells me that fossil fuels have ruined planet Earth. What's the truth?
When you look at the correlation of increased lifespan, decreased poverty, and increased use of fossil fuels, all of those things correlate nearly 100%. Fossil fuels account for 80% of all energy used on the planet today. So to argue to the contrary, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The numbers just don't add up. And at the end of the day, if you take away 80% of the energy of the planet and eliminate fossil fuels, I think we're all going to go back to living in caves and, being hunters and gatherers. And, the planet can't really sustain 8 million and a growing population of hunter-gatherers. So, I think fossil fuels are directly responsible for human flourishing. And the math is really simple.
Well, and let's just be very candid. The argument to the counter is not an argument that's ever made for the welfare of human beings. It is an argument that a political agenda is trying to get across because they want to control aspects of your life. They don't want you to have the freedom that fossil fuels give them. Let's talk about this. And last time you were here, we unpacked it just a little bit. But Russia and Iran have gotten very wealthy on the calendar of Joe Biden and the entire stifling of American energy. He comes in, eliminates the Keystone Pipeline, stops all the leases, says no more, and immediately the price of a barrel goes up. Iran and Russia get rich, and what do? They start wars. I've heard you say publicly that as an energy executive, you're not even hoping, you don't even need a price of a barrel of oil to be at $80 or $100 a barrel, which is where those guys really do get rich. You would be glad to see a $40 barrel of oil, but you're the head of an energy company. How does that work?
Yeah, look, I mean, the U.S. is so innovative. That's what we're known for, above and beyond anything else. And that innovation, has also been applied to the oil and gas industry. We've figured out over time, and a lot of capital invested, how to make oil for, much lower prices. The average price of production in the United States for shale drillers is probably in the $20 to $40 a barrel range. I don't think $40 is really a long-term sustainable price, but I think everybody in our industry would agree that a $75, $70 price is probably a long-term sustainable price. However, when you look at that $75 barrel today, in today's terms, factoring all the inflation that's happened and factoring all the currency inflation that's happened relative to other currencies, there's really a $20 premium baked into prices today that are just currency and inflation adjustments. So wow. $75 barrel today, at the onset of the shale revolution 20 years ago was really just a, $55, $60 barrel. And when you look at the petro states like Russia and Iran, who don't make anything but natural resources, they don't make anything but oil predominantly, they have to rely on a much higher price of oil. And I think there's a clear relationship between all the geopolitical unrest we're having in those hot spots around the world. And to say that that's not related to oil, I think would be a pretty difficult argument to make.
Well, and it makes it very easy for me to understand how President Trump's saying he can, upon becoming president-elect, end the wars in Ukraine and Israel, because he has the big bully club of energy to say, no, baby, we're going to open up America and we will bankrupt you. And we should be bankrupting the bad guys. I'm not going to even apologize for saying that. I know some people watching would be like, oh, Kev, how can you say it? But it's true. We should be trying to do what's right for the planet. Speaking of which, I've heard you use this term in some of your press hits over the last few weeks. Prairie Operating Group produces the world's cleanest molecule of energy. How?
Well, this comes back to the point that I harp on repeatedly, which is American ingenuity and innovation. We have, as an industry, come a long way. We're really the least emissions-oriented place to produce oil and gas. We produce the cleanest molecule as compared to anywhere else in the world. People in these other countries, they just don't care. Do you think, folks in Basra, Iraq are focused on lowering emissions, or the Venezuelans are focused on lowering emissions? We actually care about clean air and clean water and being responsible stewards of the environment. And the last time I checked, we all live on one planet. It's called Earth. We all share one atmosphere. And so to feed the world, and there is still a tremendous amount of energy poverty in the world, but to feed that world and bring those people out of poverty, we need more incremental energy of all forms, and in particular fossil fuels.
Ed Kovalik, always appreciate you. The website, friends, is oilfacts.com, oilfacts.com. Go. They have a newsletter. You can sign up and be informed of facts as they continue to release them in the days and weeks and years to come, and we hope you'll check that out. Oilfacts.com, all one word, O-I-L, oilfacts.com. Coming right back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.